India's a global force for good, and it's okay that they don't join the United States on every venture and in every way that other nations do.
I'm standing right outside the White House, and I have with me John Kirby, the White House spokesperson for national security issues. John, welcome to Times Now. My first question to you is that there was a long marathon of meetings that were held between President Biden and Prime Minister Modi and a whole supporting staff that was present over there. What was the outcome of those meetings?
I think it's really about outcomes, because there were so many outcomes from these important meetings with Prime Minister Modi and his team. Everything from clean energy investments and technology to building more resilient supply chains between our two countries, improving trade between our two countries, signing on in the Artemis Accords for space cooperation, better defense cooperation. Now India is going to be buying some MQ-9 drones from the United States, and now we are going to co-produce GE jet engines there in India. And of course, and this should not be forgotten, is bolstering people-to-people ties, improving and increasing the number of educational exchanges that we have between young Indians and young Americans. So an awful lot of outcomes from today.
So when you talk about co-production, what does it actually mean? Are you going to be transferring technology and India will be able to own that technology? You'll be sharing all the information with India? How is it going to work?
It is a technology transfer so that India can build these jet engines there intrinsically, organically in India, that for their use, whether it's commercial or even defense use.
And we heard about all of these announcements being made. Even the Prime Minister and the President mentioned about them. When do we see them getting implemented on ground? What is the timeline that has been set for the various announcements?
Well, some of these deliverables are actually already in play in terms of some of the joint investments. Others may take some time. I mean, I can't speak for General Electric or how fast they can get to co-producing these jet engines, but all of these things will be in train very, very soon.
But when you say very soon, like when we're talking about an educational partnership and cooperation in other areas, what are the concrete steps that the governments are going to take to strengthen them?
Well, I think one of the big things that came out of this was opening up new consulates, right, in each country. The Indians want to have a consulate in Seattle. We're going to have 2 more in India. And through those diplomatic channels, we'll be able to start working these muscle movements for all of these deliverables in coming weeks.
But going specifically on national security issues, you know, in the Indo-Pacific, we're seeing an increasingly important role for India. When you're talking about South Asia, just that particular area, there is also growing importance of India in that region. So what is the United States perspective, and what does it see? What are the strengths that it sees in this relationship with India?
There's actually it's about India's role in the world, not just in South Asia, not just in the Indo-Pacific. You heard the president talk about this. India is a global force for good, and this bilateral relationship between us is also a global force for good. And you ask, well, why is that? Well, because India is a vibrant, healthy, viable democracy with a young population that wants to grow and develop and learn and innovate. Number 2, it's a powerful economy. I mean, as Prime Minister Modi said, America is India's prime trading partner. We intend to bolster that, to improve that, to deepen that. And then we have, 2 militaries. Although we're not in a formal alliance, right, we know how to operate with one another, sure, we're familiar with one another, and we both have shared common interests in Indo-Pacific security. not just there in that part of the world, but actually security around the world. And so we're going to look for ways to deepen that too.
But are there any security exercises? There are some that are already conducted between India and the
There
US,
are.
but are more going to take place now after these agreements that have been signed today?
Today wasn't really about putting ink on paper on additional exercises or training events, but you're right. We do operate and we do train routinely with Indian military forces, particularly at sea with the Navy.
Right.
So I don't know that there's going to be more exercises, but we're certainly going to continue that cooperation and that training for better interoperability.
So the state visit by the Prime Minister today to the United States, what does it actually mean for the Indo-China relationship? There has been some movement there. What should we make of it?
Well, I'm not qualified to speak for the Indo-China relationship.
I'm sorry, the US-China relationship is what I was referring to.
But I think it's important, and President Biden talked about it. Today's visit was not about China. It wasn't about sending a message to China. It was about sending a message to the American people and to the Indian people, frankly, to the world, about how important this bilateral relationship is.
China is a part of the world.
We both have concerns about China and their activities. Certainly India does. We absolutely do in the Indo-Pacific and beyond. And so there's a common interest there in terms of being able to deal with that challenge posed by China.
And President Biden mentioned in his speech about Russia and about Ukraine. Did India make any promises of how it is going to play a role in navigating the situation?
Well, again, I won't speak for the Indians, but this wasn't today's discussion, which did include Ukraine, was not about arm twisting or getting the Indians to do something different or something more. Every nation has to decide for itself if and how it's going to support Ukraine and what that's going to look like. India has provided humanitarian assistance to Ukraine, and that's welcome. Every nation has to choose for themselves.
So India is going to continue to retain its independent stance, and you're only seeing India as a strategic partner and not necessarily as an ally.
What makes India a great strategic partner is that we respect their independence. We respect their sovereignty. And it's okay that they don't join the United States on every venture and in every way that other nations do. That's okay. What matters is the strength of this bilateral relationship and the fact that there's actually a lot more common interests between us than there are differences.
Wonderful, Admiral Kirby. It was a pleasure talking to you.